Hi, these flashcards were compiled to facilitate working through the MCAT style passage, Phantom Limb Pain Among Veterans. And the details discussed deal mostly with the biological foundations of behavior, but there are a few details dealing with some psychological aspects of behavior as well. Glutamate is associated with intense or mild pain. So is the neurotransmitter glutamate associated with the feeling of intense or mild pain? Mild. And here is just like a visual of glutamate being released from the pre-synaptic neuron, into the intermembrane space between neurons. And it's being received by several different receptors, some of which transduce a cascade for the feeling of pain. Okay? Substance P is associated with mild or strong pain. So the neurotransmitter substance P is this associated with mild or strong pain. Again, that would be strong pain. So here we see substance P, similar to glutamate. It's coming, out of the synapse, okay? And it's acting upon itself by changing the conformation of some type of intermembrane receptor. Here, the NK1 receptor, which leads to hyperpolarization of the cell. And we know that hyperpolarization leads to the firing of a signal or an action potential. Okay? GABA may potentiate cocaine or morphine. So the neurotransmitter GABA, does this increase the intensity of the drug cocaine or morphine? It intensifies morphine. Okay, so here we see glutamine being released from an astrocyte or a glia cell, and glia cells just basically support neurons. It releases glutamine, which transforms into glutamate. Glutamate activates the release of GABA from presynaptic vesicles into postsynaptic membranes. Well, intermembrane proteins, which again will either hyperpolarize, depolarize, and lead to a signal being fired throughout the nervous system. So I'll give you a moment to take in this visual and the legend. The blank cingulate cortex is involved in registering physical and emotional feelings. So which brain region is involved in registering physical feeling as well as emotion? That would be the anterior cingulate cortex. And here in a sagittal slice of the brain, we see that it's highlighted here. It kind of encircles the anterior region of the corpus callosum. Okay. The blank receives pain signals and relays them to other parts of the brain. So what tiny brain structure receives pain signals? That would be the thalamus, which is circled right here and it sits, atop the brainstem as well as the hypothalamus. Okay. The P blank gray mediates pain perception. So what brain structure mediates the perception, your psychological perception of pain? That would be the periaqueductal gray, and it's highlighted right here behind like the midbrain pons region. Okay. The S cortex registers what part of the body is in pain and how intense that pain is. So what part of the cortex registers this? It would be the somatosensory cortex, highlighted right here between the frontal and parietal regions. M blank works in conjunction with proprioception to produce sensation of our body's position in space. So what phenomenon that we experience works in conjunction with proprioception? That's right, you guessed it, mechanoception. And remember, again, mechanoreceptors are like really superficial receptors and nerve endings in the dermal and epidermis layer. So here they are, and I'll just give you a moment to take them in. Mechanoception, thermoception, Nociception, and proprioception. So that's pressure feeling, temperature, pain, position are categories within S blank N. Based upon the last two cards, you should be able to guess this. Or the card prior to last, I mean. That would be somatosensation, okay? And this is the somatosensory homunculus, meaning a map of, what part of the brain registers feeling in certain locations of the body. Nociception and thermoception, that's pain and temperature, utilize different or similar receptors in response to environmental stimuli. So are their receptors similar or different? So here we see free nerve endings, which could respond to pain or temperature. So, they share similar nerve endings. Okay, now this is getting exciting, a little bit of pharmacology. A is the ability of a drug to bind to a receptor. So the ability of a drug to bind to a receptor is called what? That would be affinity. Okay, so affinity is the ability of a drug to bind to a receptor. P blank is the amount of a drug required to produce an effect. So what is the amount of a drug required to produce some type of therapeutic effect? Potency. So potency is the amount of a drug required to produce a therapeutic effect. E blank is the ability of a treatment to work in a lab setting. That's like not in real life, it's in like a controlled environment. That would be efficacy, okay? Now let's see the, well, not necessarily the opposite, but a different form of efficacy. E-blank is the ability of a treatment to work in a clinical setting. So this is in real life, in the doctor's practice. So what is the name of this phenomenon? The effectiveness, not to be confused with efficacy. Efficacy, lab, effectiveness, a clinical setting or reality.